Woo, okay. So StreamYard is alerting me that I'm live. Hold on. Gotta fix the camera here. Cool. Now I just gotta wait for YouTube to let you know that I'm live. And then we can go ahead and begin with this evening's festivities. What's happening? How y'all doing? I think we got Joseph Harderson out there. What's up, Joseph? How you doing, baby? How you doing? We'll give you guys a minute or two to file into the podcast, and then we shall begin. I am looking like I'm coming straight from the Batcave tonight. Okay, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this. I'm all right with this. Woo! Yeah. Yes. This is going to be a busy week for the podcast. Got a double hitter today, another double hitter on Wednesday. And yeah, your boy's going to be busy. But this is going to be all right. So there it is. YouTube has actually sent out the notification. What's up, Gabriel? What's up, Alex Jackson? Bionic Scoop. How y'all doing? Let me tweet this out real quick. Where is my... Okay, here we go. Send the tweets out. And then we can hurry up and begin. We are live. All right, tweet has been sent. Janosin's in the cut. Jeff Hale, tech for your needs. All you all, wow, y'all are quick. We got Mike McAinch. What's up, Mike? How you doing, baby? How you doing? All right, so 12 of you all are watching. Let's go ahead and get the intro started and bring Miss Shannon into the building. Why does my camera still look off? All right, cool. So this is VypDrive episode 126. And 126 brings one of the most cool female creators to the podcast. Oh, the queen is here. And she's coming up next on VypDrive, which starts now. What's up, people? This your boy Viper, the man about tech, and welcome back to another episode of VypDrive. This is the podcast about tech, hosted by the man about tech. And tonight, I have one of the very best female creators on YouTube here on the podcast. We have the queen of InfoSec. We have a Sailor Moon fan. We have Miss Hacker Extraordinaire herself. Let's bring in Shannon Morse Snub to the podcast. Hey, Shannon, how you doing?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. I've had the craziest day, but we are finally doing this podcast together.
We are getting it done. That's right. Thank you for taking the time. I know how busy you are, so thank you. I appreciate you.
Oh, I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much for trying to work with my schedule and make this happen. I appreciate you so much. Thank you, Viper.
You are very, very welcome. So, Shannon, the first question I ask every first-time guest that comes to the podcast, Shannon, what brought you to YouTube?
Oh, what brought me to YouTube? I would say it brought my two classic loves together into a beautiful romantic love tale that worked itself out into a career. And what I mean by that is, as weird as that sounds, I love building computers. I love technology. I love everything about learning about technology. And when I was growing up, I loved doing choir and theater. So doing YouTube is able to bring these two passions together. I'm able to entertain people on a platform, and I'm able to build computers and entertain people while I'm building computers. So now I do YouTube.
That is pretty cool. So somehow you brought your love of technology and building computers and theater and entertainment to YouTube. See, that's the beautiful thing about YouTube. You no matter what your background is, no matter where you come from, you can come on YouTube. You can become the creator that you want to be. You can blend certain things that normally wouldn't jive in everyday life, but you can put it together to become the creator that you think to be on YouTube. And that's part of what makes YouTube such a magical place. You can come on here and be whatever you want and whoever you want.
Absolutely. And this didn't exist when I was a kid going to college. So being able to step out of college and start into this really crazy path still has like some people in my family going, is this really your full-time career? And I'm like, yeah, it sure is. I've been doing it for 10 years and I don't think I'm ever going to stop.
That's good. That's good. It's one of the most important things about being a creator on YouTube is loving what you do and having a passion for what you're creating.
Yes.
Because that passion will take you a very, very long way. It's a beautiful thing.
100%.
So, as I mentioned in the introduction, You are the queen of infosec. You are big into information security, hacking, things like that. So why don't you talk to us about that background? And while you do that, I'm gonna go fix my lighting here because people are talking about my lighting. So I'll be right
Oh,
back.
go ahead. Well, I thoroughly appreciate that you decided to call me the queen of infosec. Although I have imposter syndrome, like serious imposter syndrome, so I don't feel like I'm the queen of information security. But when I got started with YouTube, I felt like security and privacy were a topic that I could really delve into. And even though my background with college, with schooling, with university and everything had nothing to do with information security or networking or privacy online, it was still something that I found that I had a passion for. So I made some friends with this show called Hack5, HAK5, which is still running to this day. And I'm still doing shows on that channel. And that ended up being my main platform when I started with YouTube. So I ended up kind of educating myself about security and privacy. And I figured out that I have this little niche in information security that didn't quite exist yet on YouTube, where people were teaching each other kind of the beginner experiences of being a hacker, being a maker, and being into security and privacy. And since that didn't exist quite yet, I kind of turned it into my own little niche. So I started with my coworkers at Hack5. We started a show called Hack Tip, and I pretty much took over that show, and I started doing a whole bunch of entire series that you could basically like watch in a college university class. In fact, many professors have used my courses in their classrooms. And I ended up basically giving these classes on YouTube about all these like security and privacy technical topics. And it ended up like, I fell in love with it. I love the whole community of hacking and making and security and privacy. I love the fact that everybody is really interested in just delving in and figuring out how things work. And if we can't figure it out, we always find like a loophole or some kind of side way to get in or break a thing or make it do a thing, like a specific thing that you want a thing to do. Like I hacked a Nintendo Wii at one point, way back in the day, to like run a whole bunch of these like random homebrew video games that you could download off this random internet website. Like there are all sorts of weird things that I've been able to figure out over the past 10 years that before I got involved in hacking and InfoSec, I didn't even know this kind of stuff existed, because it's such a niche kind of like cult culture that you don't really see it in mainstream platforms. So I just sort of fell in love with it. Like we're all kind of a family whenever we go to conventions and stuff like that. And I just love the community, and I love that everybody is really friendly and everybody just wants to teach each other. And that's really something that made me love it so much.
So basically what you just told us is that you are a part of the hacker collective. That's what you just said.
Yes. And ironically, this week is virtual DEF CON, which is the biggest hacker convention in the entire United States. And because of the pandemic this year, we couldn't go to Vegas. It's actually still happening virtually online. So there's still like contests. There's still all these different like Easter eggs that you can find online. There's still merch and swag, and people are still getting together on Discord, and there's still talks. Like there's so much still happening this year around information security and privacy, even though the convention isn't happening, but we're all still joining hands at our like hacker summer camp this year.
I'm about to say, if anybody could be able to hold a virtual event and be a group of hackers, I mean, come on now, what are we talking about here? Come on.
I know, like how you feel getting on a Discord with a bunch of hackers. Like that's gotta be trust no one.
Water, baby. I'm like,
trust no one. So I actually used to have a job at a bank when I first started on YouTube working with Hack5. I got a job at a bank as like my day job, because we didn't make any money back then on the show. it was YouTube, like first starting out in 2010. So I had this full-time job. And the very first day I got my job there, they were like, oh, you're Shannon Morse. You're that little hacker, aren't you?
You got ID'd.
I straight up said to him, it's a good thing I'm working on your side and not against you.
Ooh, look at, she's legendary. They know her. They know not to cross her. Don't cross Shannon. Don't
right.
Cross her. So I'm curious, given that you have a background in hacking and infosec and things like that, how real are these hacking movies? Movies like The Net with Sandra Bullock or Swordfish with John Travolta. Are these movies really real? Are these things that can actually happen in real life, or are they overblown Hollywood stories that they make up and things like that?
I'm so glad you asked because, well, The Net is a terrible example of hacking. It's so bad. But then you have something like, for example, Mr. Robot. Mr. Robot actually had people come to DEF CON and interview and work with real life hackers.
Ooh.
So a lot of the hacking scenes that you see in Mr. Robot are indeed very, very true. In fact, Hack5 has created these products like the Wi-Fi Pineapple, all these information security products that you can use to either protect your network or break into one contractually. Hopefully you're legally allowed to do so. But we've seen these products because these companies will contact us and be like, hey, can we like borrow 20 of your Wi-Fi Pineapples or borrow 50 of them or whatever. So if you watch Silicon Valley, there's actually an episode where you will see Hack5 products on it. And it's the same thing with Mr. Robot. You can see the USB rubber ducky on Mr. Robot. That's another Hack5 product. In fact, I was in Jason Bourne, the most recent Jason Bourne movie. I had a little cameo. I had no speaking role whatsoever, but I was in a convention scene.
Whoa, slow down. Time out on the podcast. Are you telling me that you, Shannon, were in Jason Bourne? Oh my goodness, that's
straight
cool.
up. Yeah, straight up I was. If you look for a girl in the convention scene, I'm only on scene for like 1 second or something, but I had pink hair at the time and you can see me right in the front row. And like I'm talking as a extra, like I'm just kind of pantomiming to another extra as if she's interviewing me, and that's it. That's all you can see. But you can also see like the Hack5 booth in the background. See, what happened was this lady came to DEF CON from Jason Bourne and she was planning out this convention scene. She went to DEF CON because she wanted it to look like DEF CON in the movie. So she ended up getting in contact with a whole bunch of vendors that were there. And she was like, hey, would you mind coming back out to Vegas and rebuilding your booth in the Aria and turning it into a like semi DEF CON? And we were like, yeah, sure. And they were like, oh, by the way, but it's for Jason Bourne, so you can't say anything until the movie comes out. And we were just like, dude.
You're like, we are in.
It was so cool. It was so cool. So
now I'm gonna have to go find the recent Bourne movie and see if I can locate Shannon, because that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
You have to.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, number one, I don't know what's going on with your camera frozen, so I don't know. I'm not sure what's happening with that. At least it's frozen on a good frame, so that's good. Number two.
Oh, I have no clue. Here, I'll restart it. So who knows? Who knows what happened? Good.
Shout out to the 29 of y'all that are watching the podcast live. Thank you for hanging out with me and Shannon today. I appreciate you guys rocking out each and every episode of VypDrive. So thank you. If you guys want to check out Shannon, I will put her information in the description when I get a chance. If I haven't done so already, I don't think I did, but I will try to put that in the description. Oh, no. Yep. It's down there. So her channel link is in the description. So definitely go check her out. Also, if you want to support or donate to the podcast, you do have the option of super chat. So super chats are open. Also, you can become a channel member. None of this stuff is actually required, but anything that you want to contribute is greatly, greatly appreciated. And if you don't want YouTube taking 30% of your super chat donation, you also have the option to buy me a coffee. Shout out to Bugs. I got the notification that you brought me a couple of coffees, sir. So thank you for the support. I appreciate you. And there is the coffee link in the chat. Thank you, Janotin, for that. I appreciate you guys. Also, I think he just put the merch in there. So as you guys can see, I'm rocking my new merch tonight. So if you guys want, hold on, if I can get it off the screen, there we go. If you guys want one of these new shirts, they are on the merch store. So hit up that link to Janotin just paste in the chat and go get yourself some Viper merch. And that is what's going on. Shout out to those of y'all listening on audio only this week. Thank you for listening to another episode of VypDrive with me and Shannon Morse. I appreciate you guys listening each and every week to the podcast. If you guys want to go check out her content, her information will be in the show notes. So definitely go down there and check her out. If you want to support or donate to the podcast, that info will also be in the show notes. There should be a link in the show notes to buy me a coffee. Not required, but anything that you're willing to contribute, greatly, greatly appreciate it. Also, if you happen to be listening on Apple Podcasts, please consider leaving a rating or review as to help more people discover the podcast, help me get back into the top 200 of tech podcasts on Apple. So if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave that rating or review as it helps out VypDrive a lot. and thank you for listening to another episode of the show. So I just think it's so cool that you had a thing in Jason Bourne. So have you had a chance to be in any other movies or just that one?
Let's see. I was in that one, and then are you familiar with Kate Micucci from Garfunkel and Oates?
I am not.
It's a duet of these two gorgeous ladies who do this really hilarious music, and Kate Micucci plays a ukulele, and they did a really funny song called 13 Going on 30, for example. They have a whole bunch. They're so funny, but they're kind of like not safe for work, so highly recommend you watch after hours. Watch one of their YouTube videos. They're really funny. But I met her randomly in San Francisco, and she invited me to be in her indie movie, which was called Unleashed. I think it's available to rent online, but I was a extra in the background for that movie too. So I've never been like a speaking role or anything like that. I don't have a SAG or anything like that. I'm not a part of any kind of community for actors. But since I have that background with theater, it's kind of something that I've gotten into a few times, but it's not my main position being a YouTuber. You know, the first thing that I love to do is content creation, but I've just kind of randomly fell into a couple of movies. And like, I feel like some of that is blind luck and just being in the right place at the right time, but I'm okay with it.
I love how she said that she randomly fell into movies. I mean, can you ever randomly fall into movies too? Yo, shout out to our head of security, El Jefe, for the super chat. He's listening while he's studying. He said, make sure y'all follow Snubs. She is awesome. She is. Thank you, Jeff.
El Jefe is awesome as well.
He is. All right, so while we're on that subject, let's talk about Snubs. How did you come up with that nickname? Where did it come from?
Oh gosh, that was like high school days.
Ooh.
That was long before YouTube even existed. I'm an old lady, just FYI. But yeah, me and my friend one day, I was like stressed out and trying to figure out what my AOL handle should be. And I was like, man, I need a cool handle. What should my cool handle be? And he was like, you should do something Sailor Moon related. And I was like, no, that's like too obvious. And then he was like, well, what about something cute like Chubsies? And I was like, oh, that's cute, but people might think that I'm like a large lady, and I'm like a medium-sized lady. And I was like, I mean, I like the name Chubsies. That's really cute. I was like, I could go with that one. And he goes, what about Snubsies? And I was like, but I don't snub people. And he goes, how about Snubsy Boo? And I was like, I like Snubsy Boo. So over time, Snubsy Boo. So over time, it went from Chubsies to Snubsy Boo to Snubsy. And now it's just Snubs. But I promise, I never snubs people at all. I promise.
That is an interesting timeline of how that whole nickname turned out. From
it's so weird
to Snubsy to Snubs. Or
yeah.
Now Snubs. Interesting. Okay.
It was so weird. Like I was worried with the first one that, you know, people would, you know, say mean things about me because I'm a woman. People on YouTube always comment about women's appearances and stuff like that. So if I used a screen name that could have been, you know, negatively, you know, talking about my weight, which I've always been somewhat self-conscious about my weight as it is, then some people might use that against me. So I was just like, well, I like the second one he came up with, which was the Snubsy Boo one. I thought that was really cute. And I was like, I like that. And then over time, I'm kind of glad that it shortened to Snubs because it's way easier to spell than Snubsy Boo. That's kind of long. But it's so much easier on Twitter and all the social media sites to just use Snubs instead. But of course, then you come with the thing that like everybody thinks that you're going to snub them in person. And I'm just like, I'm not like that. I like making friends.
Yeah, she does. She's very friendly. Absolutely. So, before I go any further, shout out to Jeff Hill. I got the notification that you brought me some coffee. So thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you. So you know what? Let's get down into the weed because you are a very successful woman in tech. And this is the question that I ask a lot of female techies that come on the podcast. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on it. Why is it, at least to me, Shannon, it seems like there could be more women in tech, but there's not. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on why you feel like there aren't more women in tech.
Yeah, we could go really deep with that. So I could definitely speak from like an information security and privacy standpoint as an educator and a content creator. Even personally, I have noticed some unconscious biases against me whenever I go to like conventions and stuff like that. And I feel like when you try to get a position in information security, a lot of times you're deemed to be like the booth babe as opposed to the expert when you're discussing whatever you're supposed to be discussing.
Wow.
I can give you a prime example, something that my husband actually experienced with me at DEF CON. I was working the Hack 5 booth, and he was just helping sell stuff because we get very busy. So he just came with me one year, which was awesome, by the way. It was great to have my husband there so he could like see what DEF CON is like. But he was just selling Wi-Fi pineapples like normal. This guy came up to him and started asking him all these technical questions, like pretty easy stuff from my experience because I've been doing it for so long, but my husband was not familiar with it like I was. So the kid would be like, oh, well, what kind of antennas does it take? Are they RPSMA or are they SMA? And I'd be like, oh, they're RPSMA. And then he'd be like, well, what's the range and what's the decibels and the dBi and what's the, are they 2.4 or 5 gigahertz? And like all this, just things that I know off the top of my head. So I walked over there because I could see my husband being like, I don't know, I'm just, you give me money, I give you things. So I walked over there and I started answering the questions, and the kid's jaw dropped. He was like probably a 21-year-old boy. And I say that because I'm 34 years old. So, but his jaw just dropped. He stared at me for a second, and then he stared at my husband, and he goes, wait, you know the Wi-Fi pineapple? And he pointed at me, and then he turned to my husband and he goes, and you don't? And I was like, yeah, I'm one of the hosts of the show. You can check us out on YouTube. And he was just like, wow. And I was just like, of course, like he automatically just assumed when he came up to the booth that the guy would know all the information, the first male that he saw or person that identified as male. And the person that identified as a female, he looked at me and he automatically thought, oh, like she must just be a booth babe. Like she just works here. Like why I didn't understand why it was so surprising for him that I would be the one that knew all the technical aspects, while my husband, who was basically just volunteering for the weekend, didn't know all of those technical questions that he wanted answered. And that's a perfect example of things that women in information security and content creators as well have experienced when it comes to like being a tech person, being somebody who's into some kind of technical aspect or genre for the longest time. Like we've always experienced those kind of unconscious biases because of, I guess, what society deems women should be into. Women have never been seen as the gender or identity that should be into tech. And as such, a lot of people just automatically don't think that we would be into it. So when somebody is, it's seen as a surprise. And I think a lot of women don't want to deal with that, especially because it oftentimes leads to harassment, or it'll lead to a lot of uncomfortable opinions or uncomfortable experiences in the workplaces. So they just don't want to deal with it. So I think that in order to make a change, we really need to start with like the next generations down and kind of change their perceptions of what women can be into, and kind of change their perceptions around tech in general and make it something for everybody as opposed to something for a very, very niche audience for like 50% of the population, when it really isn't. It should be for everybody.
Now, do you think this is something that can be like adjusted like in youth? Because I think a lot of it is the way that girls, women are brought up. They're kind of brought up to avoid tech because, like you said, it's not really defined as a thing that women should be into. And I think a lot of that starts at a young age. Women are steered kind of away from tech. So do you think that we could change that, like as women or young girls are growing up, and kind of steer them more into tech? I mean, some of that is already starting now with STEM curriculum and things like that. But I think more of that should be going on and happening.
100%. Like, I think one of the reasons that I got into tech just in general was because my dad got me into it at a young age. For example, like I built my first computer when I was around 9 years old, and he had a computer in my nursery when I was a baby, and he would like let me sit on his lap and just bang away at the keyboard. I didn't know what I was doing as a baby, but it was naturally a part of my life growing up because it was always around me. So I feel like if you start kids at a young age with so many different options as opposed to just kind of sticking them with Barbies and My Little Ponies, which I was also into. I liked My Little Ponies as much as I liked computers, let's be honest. Then they will grow up and they will know that they have a lot more options than maybe just what society or just what their school tells them that they have the option for. It's even something that I think school counselors could focus more on, is focusing not just on saying like, you know, hey, you might be really good at HR, like if they're talking to a young girl, as opposed to being like, hey, you might want to think about getting a job in programming if you have the mind for it. Like if you have a very logical mindset, programming might be a really good option for you. So like maybe if people focus more on that, like giving people options, giving kids options, I feel like that would change our mindsets so much more. And I just hope that I can continue working down this path to introduce more people into it, so that eventually when I'm an old lady with gray hair, well, hopefully it'll still be purple and rainbow because I'll still dye it, even though it's going to be completely gray. But I'm hoping when I'm older, like I will see that a lot more in generations after me. So that's kind of a goal in my life, like long term, is when I'm old, I want to see all the little girls like into IT and InfoSec and programming and building machines like I was when I was a kid.
Yeah, I think like I said, it's definitely starting to happen more now, but there's still a vast misrepresentation of females, even in the YouTube tech space. It's funny when there's the Twitter thread going on and they're talking about top tech creators and things like that. They name off every male tech creator under the sun, and they rarely ever name any female tech creators.
Yes, I've noticed that too. And actually, props to you, Vype, for, you know, going through and seeing those kind of threads. And I've noticed many times where you pipe in and you're like, can I shout out these female creators? And then you list like several of us. And I've been included in a couple of those threads. So I want to say thank you to you too for piping up for us as well, because, you know, we're kind of minorities in tech. So I really appreciate that you do that.
Listen. There are females in tech YouTube that are like 1,000 times smarter than me. I mean, you guys definitely get recognized. You girls, I should say, should definitely get recognized and lauded for your accolades and your technical acumen. I was talking to Justine a few weeks ago about how she's always underestimated and people don't really take her seriously because of the bubbly personality and the smile. And this girl has a background in graphic design and she built computers and did all this stuff. I'm like, really, you all? Like, how you just judge her without like actually knowing what she's capable of and what her background is? Like, it's so unfair to me. There are so many awesome female creators on YouTube.
Absolutely.
And none of them, they don't get the credit because like they're women and for whatever reason, society doesn't take technical female minds very seriously. The cool thing is though, I had a brand email me one day and they were like, Viper, we know you're in touch with the community. Can you please like gear us towards some female creators? I'm like, oh, hell yes.
Oh, that's so cool.
I'm like, hell yes, I can. Let me browse down some names. I got you. So that was pretty cool that some brands are starting to get more in tune with the fact that, yes, there are females out there that are in the tech space and they're very good. You might want to give them a look.
Yeah, 100%.
They are there.
Well, I feel like having allies whenever it comes to getting like into the tech career as a woman is extremely important. Not just because, you know, we might deal with something like in a meeting, somebody might talk over us and think that an idea is not ours, which I've definitely experienced. And I've piped up for other women in meetings in person. Like that straight up happened. But also because you do see that online a lot of times where companies will like bypass a specific type of person, whether that's a gender, race, ethnicity, whatever it might be. They might bypass that person and go to somebody that's more familiar to them because they're uncomfortable working with somebody who's different from them. Like I've seen that several times over the years, like working as a professional in this environment. And it's something that I'm trying to change too. So anytime somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, can you recommend some more people that we can sponsor? I'm like, yes, here's, you know, all these different kinds of folks that I've been able to work with. And I just hope that they reach out to more people that are different from them, because that means that they're going to be marketing to a much bigger market. So it's good for them because they will make more money.
Yeah, it's funny because I used to kind of joke with some of my fellow male creators about what the percentage of our female audience was for our tech videos. And it kind of grown over the past year for me anyway. I think I'm up to like 16% right now. I haven't checked lately, but it used to be like less than 10, but now it's over 10. But I'm just curious with you, like people like you and Justine and Tao and Jacqueline and Crystal, Laura, and all of you all doing tech that are women. I'm curious what your guys and female audience is. I'm pretty sure probably more than mine and anybody other men doing tech because, people want to identify with people that look like them.
Well, you might be a little surprised. Mine's pretty high on the male side. So, percentage wise, when it comes to YouTube, what they consider male and female, I think my female percentage is like 17% or 15%. And then male is like 82 to 85%. And it kind of varies from month to month, depending on, the algorithm and everything. But yeah, it's actually grown. So, my female percentage for my audience has actually grown quite a bit in the past year or so. It actually used to be around 5%. And a lot of that is because I come from the hacker industry and the InfoSec background. And most of that industry is male. It's very, very male dominated. And I think that a lot of people watch our shows from the InfoSec background. So I kind of understand why there's such a huge audience of men that watch our shows. But I also think that given that I've started doing a lot more tech work on my own channel and I've been introducing a lot of InfoSec concepts for consumers, I'm starting to see a new audience come in. And a lot of that is women. And I'm really, really happy about that because there's a lot of women who are content creators and who are people who are, maybe out there doing a personal brand or they're doing speaking events at conventions and stuff like that. And those are the folks that really need to understand security and privacy online. So I'm really hoping that by introducing these concepts to a new audience, there's going to be a lot more of a user base that understands those kind of concepts for security and privacy.
Yeah, like Tech 702 just mentioned in the chat here. I think part of it is because YouTube is a mostly male-dominated platform as far as audience goes. Although I just checked my percentages just now, and I'm actually up to 20% females. I'm like, oh, I think that's the highest I've ever been. So that's kind of amazing to me.
That's awesome.
It is pretty cool. But I mean, I know there are females out there that watch YouTube. It's not like you all are not something. You all have a whole niche like for beauty pretty much and all that stuff. So you all are out there. So
I don't even watch like beauty YouTubers. I watch photography gurus a lot because I really like to learn about cameras, and that's something I'm trying to learn more on. I learn a lot about other content creators. Like I watch a lot of YouTube experts, so I can kind of figure out my own algorithm and understand what works best for my channel. So I watch a lot of that, a lot of educational stuff like science and technology. This Week in Science by my friend Dr. Kiki is like a really good show. I have a lot of friends that do a lot of like science and technical work. So those are the kind of shows that I love to watch, like pretty much on a day-to-day basis. And very rarely will I watch a review of something from like Sephora, even though that's still something I'm interested in because I like to find out about the eyeshadows and things. But usually it's tech.
That is pretty cool. You watch what you like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shout out to Renee Ritchie for the super chat. Got mad respect for Shannon and Viper Course.
Oh, hi, Renee.
Yeah, Renee is the real dog. I would highlight your chat, but it's not on my StreamYard. Oh, I spoke too soon. There it is. So thank you, Renee, for the support. I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Thank you, Renee.
Yeah, Renee and I have actually ran in the same circles for a very long time. I used to work at a network that I think that he's also been on doing like guest hosting and stuff back in the day. So yeah, I come from like this whole history of YouTube, like Revision 3, Discovery Digital Networks, Twit. I have friends that used to be on like G4 and stuff like that. And that's just like, that's the niche that I fell into with YouTube. And then it's very old school. And a lot of us have grown up and, a lot of the folks in that industry have had kids now and stuff like that. And I'm starting to introduce myself to this brand new circle of amazing community members on YouTube. And I'm finding that everybody is so welcoming and so friendly and so nice. And I really appreciate it because I'm trying to like introduce myself to this new this new core community. And it's awesome that everybody has been so positive.
Absolutely. I have said it time and time again on this podcast that the tech community really takes care of its own. It's amazing how we take care of each other, how we embrace, and like you said, how we're so welcoming to other fellow creators and audience members and things like that. It is truly an amazing community. And speaking of YouTube gurus and specialists, I see Roberto Blake is in the house. What's up, Roberto? How you doing? I am pretty sure Shannon watched me your content because, like I said, like I remember when I was first starting a YouTube channel, you could not get away from Roberto Blake. Every time you type anything that has to do with YouTube help or YouTube growth, there he is. He's just there. You can't get away from him.
Roberto's awesome. He's been one of like the solid people that I watch every single video of from, because he's one of those YouTube gurus that I trust. And he's actually, I can give you a solid reason to watch Roberto Blake, for example. Our channel Hack5, HAK5, if you go there, you'll see that we've already hit over 600,000 subscribers. And even though that's a slow and steady pace, I've used a lot of what he's taught me and implemented that onto the Hack5 channel, and it has helped us grow tremendously. So thank you, Roberto. You're amazing, and I love what you do on YouTube. It really, really does help people.
Definitely. Roberto, I mean, I spent many hours chatting with Roberto, so I know how legit that dude is. I want to go back to what we were talking about earlier on the podcast. You were talking about how you're involved in the hacking community because it's so open and allows you to like learn code and manipulate code and like mod things and things like that. So that kind of brings me to your preference for Android. I know we've had this conversation.
Oh
yeah. Ooh,
are we gonna fight?
I don't think we're gonna fight. I'm just curious to get your thoughts on Android, because I know that's what you prefer, and I know that you prefer because you have that hacker mentality. You like to mod and mess with code and things like that. So talk about why you prefer Android more over iOS. I'm guessing because Android is open source and allows you more flexibility in what you can do.
Yes, absolutely. So part of it is because I have a lot of friends who are developers who work with Android because it's a very open platform. So they've been able to modify and customize and do a lot of work in that front. And they've been able to, create careers and create jobs. So I really want to push and help promote my friends that are doing work like that. But it's also because whenever you go to a hacker convention, it's really important that you're able to customize and really get down and dirty into what your smartphone can and cannot do. One example I could give is I was able to go into my Android phone, which Apple may have this ability nowadays. I'm not sure, but it was not available a few years ago, where you can turn off specific types of cell phone service so that your phone will just not connect to them whatsoever. So if my phone, for example, lost connection to 4G service at any time, it would not drop any lower. It would just lose connection completely. That's because a few years ago, 3G, there was a vulnerability announced for 3G, and 3G could be hacked. So if your phone connected to a 3G tower, then your phone could end up getting attacked by an attacker. So what I would do whenever I went to DEF CON, because it's full of hackers, I would disable 3G connections on my Android phone. So it would only connect to 4G, and then I would be a little bit safer. And I would also, be able to disable other stuff too that you could obviously disable in Apple. But that's a good example of one of the customizations that I was able to do on Android that I wasn't able to do on an Apple phone back in the day. Although Apple has gotten a lot better with allowing you to do these kind of customizations and allowing you to kind of take more control of what your phone can do. So I do give them credit in that. And I've actually owned like an iPad for many years. I sold it, but I did have one. So so I'm not a hater. Like I've used a MacBook Air when I was working at Twit, and I've had iPhones. That's where I started my smartphone journey. And really it was because I got into information security that I wanted an Android phone. There's a lot of applications that I was able to download kind of third party that I wouldn't recommend for a regular user, but it was something that I wanted to do so that I could modify what I was able to do on my phone. So I'm able to have a lot of fun on an Android phone. I'm able to do really cool things that I wasn't able to do on Apple.
Let me stop you right there. You cannot say in the same thing, I'm not a hater, but I stole my iPad. How did that work? Shannon? I don't know how that works. You can't say that.
Hey, don't judge me. Okay, I needed the money. I just bought a house.
Also, shout out to LeBaron Burton for the super chat. He says, Shannon, he has you in mind for one of his future projects. So you might want to go look out for LB. Y'all know about LB. He's been on a podcast before.
Oh my gosh.
Y'all already know. Y'all know about LB. Y'all know.
Have you tried his popcorn?
Have I? I got some in the kitchen.
Dude, I am obsessed. Like,
oh, I thought of the photos that you posted on Twitter of all the flavors you were trying. The best popcorn in the world.
my taste testing.
Without question, the best popcorn in the world right now.
Oh, so good.
Popcorn world. You all know the procedures. He was a guest on the podcast. Go back to that episode. All that information's in the show notes. No doubt, man. But yeah, like I said, I understand why someone like you will prefer Android because it gives you a lot more customization and flexibility about what you can do with your phone. Now, I'm curious. Back in my day, like I was talking with Shane Starr, Joy Moderax a few days ago. I was talking to him about how my first smartphone, well, besides BlackBerry, was actually an Android because I'm a Verizon customer, and Verizon didn't have the iPhone until iPhone 4, and back in 2011. So before 2011,
really?
Yeah,
I was on AT&T back in the day, so I didn't know that.
You were golden. So before I had an iPhone, I had a Droid X, I had an HTC Thunderbolt, I had the Motorola Droid Bionic. So I've had a few Androids before I ever touched an iPhone.
Oh.
So back in those days, I actually used to root my Android. So I'm curious if you ever rooted your Android, or do you root your Android?
Oh, sir, yes, I have.
She's like, hell yes, I do.
Hell yes, I have. So one of the coolest things that I've done with an Android phone was several years ago at this point, because you don't really have to do it anymore, because we have so many abilities nowadays on like every single platform and operating system. It doesn't really matter anymore. But back in the day, I was able to jailbreak an Android phone and I put Linux on it, and I was able to use it as like a little hacker device. And it was one of my like really cool Hack 5 segments that I did back in those days. I think I ended up putting like Kali Linux on it, which is basically a security and privacy Linux platform, and it has a whole bunch of different programs already pre-installed in it. So it was really cool, and it was very, very nerdy, but it was a really fun episode.
That is pretty cool. Shout out to Saturday Night Tech Fight, my man Don Tech Key, Mike. Thank you for the super chat, sir. I appreciate it. You know what? I'll deal with you later, Mike. I'll deal with you later.
Yeah.
I'll deal with you. But you almost come out guard because you said you jailbroken Android. We don't jailbreak Android. We root them.
I'm sorry, we rooted it.
Jailbreak iPhones though, and I've done that.
See, I told you it's been years. I mean, I don't even do it anymore. So
yeah, but
you're right. We rooted it.
Like I said, back in the day, I used to root my Androids, and I mean, Androids have come such a long way from 10 years ago that there's really no reason to root Android today. They have all the features and everything that you would need.
Yeah.
Without rooting it. I mean, I don't know if you would agree, but I don't feel my Android at all today.
And nowadays, like if there is some kind of like third party, I don't know, widget or like any kind of customizations you want to do, you can generally get those straight through the Google Play Store.
Yep.
So there's really no reason to root them anymore unless you really want to do something funky. But I mean, that's very rare.
Definitely. So given that you are an Android person, what is your current Android device of choice today?
So I have, well, let's see. I think it's upstairs. I have a Pixel 4 XL that I got in orange, so orange. So that's still one of my favorite devices. And down here, I've been using as my daily driver a S10 or S20 Plus, which isn't necessarily my favorite in the world. I'm not a big fan of the cameras on here, for example, but I do like the implementation of the processor on here, and I like how fast it is. It's a very fast phone, but I'm not a big fan of Samsung's operating system. So I used to have a Note 4 back in the day. That was one of my first phones after an iPhone, and it was hard for me to get used to it. And then I switched over to like the Pixel phones, and I love vanilla Android. It's my favorite. I will say like OnePlus has really, really good software. So like if you're moving from an iPhone, for example, and going to Android, OnePlus has been a very, very fluid UI. They have a great user experience, and it's really, really easy to kind of get the groove of how to use it. But Samsung it's a little hard sometimes. Like even though I'm a hacker and I still have issues with Samsung now and then where I'm just like, where did they hide this thing? And then I have to search for it as opposed to just going straight to it in the menu. So I have had some of those kind of issues. And I would say like, when it comes to software, I definitely prefer Pixel, just because vanilla is it's my favorite thing ever. Although I prefer chocolate for dessert.
It's so funny hearing you say that because given your background and you being a hacker and liking to mod things, I would have thought that you would be more in tune with the Samsung software because there's so many tweaks and features that they have in that software. But since you do like stock Android, vanilla Android, I can understand that. Because, I mean, vanilla Android, I mean, there's not much to it. You just get the basic Android skin and then you go about your business. Yeah. But I like my Androids. I prefer the Samsung devices. I love the Galaxy devices because they do have all the different features in the kitchen thing on them. And when it comes to stock Android, I just get bored really quickly. Now, the Pixel phones, I don't mind too much. But the OnePlus devices absolutely bore me to tears.
Really?
I can't stand it. They're so boring. Once you put that Oxygen OS, there's not much more to the OnePlus device. I get bored so quick.
Well, I would say, like, let's see, cameras. I do like the 10 series of Samsung phones. They had really good cameras. Not a big fan of the S20 camera. Personally, I know some people's opinions differ, but that's my opinion. OnePlus, I feel like I like their UI, their user interface. I think it's really good on there. And when it comes to Pixel, I like their operating system, especially because it is the most secure of the Android phones. Like, you get the Titan M security chip, which is a big factor. It basically secures the brain of your phone, but you also get the updates immediately as they're available from Google. So that's a really big plus for me as well. And one of the reasons why I do recommend Pixel phones. And I think that they do a really good job with the cameras too. Like, the portrait mode on the Pixel 4 is really nice. It's very, very nice.
I have it on good authority that I have a Pixel 4a coming my way as soon as tomorrow. So I'm going to definitely get into that. But yeah.
Wait, where's it shipping from? Because there's something on FedEx. I don't know what's coming. I ordered a lot of furniture.
California, where it's coming from. So if it's a 2-pound delivery from FedEx coming from California, there's a chances are that they're coming for you too. Yeah, that Pixel 4a is supposed to be here tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. The camera, the Pixel camera, that portrait mode is second to none.
Awesome.
I'm an iPhone dude. But iPhone camera can't touch that portrait mode on the Pixel camera.
It's really, really stunning. Yeah, I've been impressed with it. And even like when you have long hair or you have like a whole bunch of flyaways and stuff like that, it still does a really good job of being able to tell you from the background, and it doesn't end up like blurring.
I'm a little wacky on the hair. I don't have the long hair, but it does.
Yeah, you know this problem. You know this problem.
I got the long hair, right? But I have seen people with hair, and it detects the edges of the hair very well, especially better than an iPhone. iPhone portrait mode needs a lot of work, but Pixel portrait mode is pretty good with that stuff.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. And I use it on like my pets too. Like, I just got a puppy and it does such a good job around her hair too. And she's a black dog, so it's kind of hard for it to like distinguish her eyes from her face sometimes, but it does a really good job if I make sure that it's focusing on the correct thing. So yeah, I'm a big fan of portrait mode.
Ooh, so we got an interesting question in the chat from Janose. He says, Shannon, do you find Titan M more secure than Knox?
Ooh, that is a good question. I would say from a user standpoint, because I don't have any background knowledge, like developer knowledge of Knox versus Titan M, because I don't work at either company, so I couldn't tell you anything like behind the scenes. But from a user standpoint, I would say I prefer Titan M. I think it's because like the device is built by the same company that has implemented that technology, but also because I trust Google's security. As weird as that sounds, as a information security hacker, like I trust Google's security quite a bit. It might be because I'm a little biased in the fact that I have a lot of friends that work in InfoSec at Google. So I know that they've put a lot of heart and soul into what they've created. But it's also because I've seen like how they've worked so well with other companies too, like Project Zero, for example. So I feel like they've implemented a lot of what they've learned into their own technology, but they're also trying to introduce that to other technologies as well that they don't even own. So it might not necessarily say like Titan M is better than Knox. It might not be. Like, there's always going to be vulnerabilities. But from my own personal perspective, as somebody who has kind of seen, how well and how how passionate they are about what they're doing on the back end, I would say Titan M. But I think you'd be fine with either.
Gotcha. Nice. Yeah, that Nox is pretty secure. I know my job using the Samsung devices just because of Nox and how secure it is. So Nox is legit and Titan M is legit as well.
Yeah, they're both legit, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
But I would just say, like, you know, I am a little bit biased because I do have friends that work at Google. So I've just seen their passion and I've seen how much work they put into it. So I always tend to go towards Titan M, but as a user, you'd be fine with either.
Mm-hmm. So I am curious, being a person that is in InfoSec with all the mobile devices out there in the streets and things like that, what is like the most basic mistake you see people make in terms of their securing their mobile devices?
Oh my gosh, yes. Let's see. Well, nowadays, luckily, lock screens are pretty much required, no matter what operating system you use, which is great, because that was always an issue back in the day. But I would say,
Whoa. And we just lost our guest on the podcast. Oh my goodness. I did not push the button. That was weird. So I don't know what's going on. I guess I will okay, we got her back. So let's get her back in here. Let's see if we can pick up where we left off. Welcome back.
Hello again. Yes, so sorry. My browser froze and then it closed the window. I think it crashed on me. Anyway, as we were saying, I think since smartphones now require you to have a lock screen pretty much like when you're setting it up, which is wonderful and absolutely something you should do, I would say I think the worst thing that people are doing on mobile phones is probably clicking on things that they shouldn't click on. So like if you're checking your email on your smartphone, for example, and you see something pop up in your inbox and it says like, oh, you have to click here and sign in or else we're going to close down your account.
Oh man. Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I better click on sign in and make sure that I've updated my account or whatever. Like it could be a phishing attempt or something like that. And then they might be able to install malware on your smartphone or something like that. And a lot of times, if you're not downloading straight from the Play Store or the Apple Store for your applications, if you're downloading third party, you do run that risk. And generally, although there have been vulnerabilities in both, generally, if you stick with both of those application stores and not go third party, then you'll be fine. Right. But if you do end up starting to click on things that you really shouldn't click on, like ads on in your browser, or for example, stuff in your email, or maybe somebody sends you a really weird link over a text message, it could be phishing. It could be an attempt to install malware or bypass the security on your phone so that they could be able to snoop. Attackers could be able to snoop on whatever's happening.
We have YouTube creators that have lost their channel clicking on these links in their emails that tell them to sign in. There's something going on with their account, sign in, or your account could be terminated, things like that. And they listen and they click and sign in and bye channel. It's a wrap. Gotta be careful.
And a lot of times attackers will kind of base their attacks on like trying to get some kind of emotion out of you. So some kind of fear factor, like, oh my gosh, a fear of missing out, or, oh my gosh, if I don't click on this right now, like there's an urgency. So a lot of times if you see this urgency and some kind of link, it might be phishing or it might be some kind of attack against you. And it might not even be targeted. It could just be something that they spewed out onto the internet and they're hoping at least 2 people click on it. And then they steal your device information. So that's always a potential. And it's always something I recommend to people is just practice good security hygiene. Like don't reuse your passwords. Make sure that you're using 2-factor authentication wherever you can. And don't click on stuff.
Don't click on stuff, basically. All right, we'll get you out of here on this. Roberto has a good question. So our trusty President Trump is going to ban TikTok by September 15th unless an American company buys TikTok. That's what I'm getting off the news today. What are your thoughts on TikTok potentially being banned here in the U.S. as far as it being a security threat?
Oh boy. All right, Roberto, that's a good question. So first off, I feel like it's kind of biased and hilarious of us to judge TikTok on something that we should be judging even American companies on that are already snooping on your data and collecting information from third parties, purchasing your data from all sorts of places on the internet and creating data points. Like, even one example that I give is, even though you may not have a Facebook account, Facebook still probably has data points on you based on what friends and family have posted and what they have purchased or found from third parties and collected. Do you have an Instagram account and not a Facebook account? Then Facebook has information on you because they own Instagram. Do you have information, or has like one of your friends posted a picture of you on Facebook? If you have like pictures on Facebook, or if friends have maybe uploaded something without your knowledge or without your consent to Facebook, like that, Facebook has that information on you. So we have American companies that are already doing this. And then we're looking at TikTok and saying like, oh, based on the fact that you're a Chinese company, even though we have no proof that they have done anything maliciously, other than having a few vulnerabilities, which are kind of normal when it comes to social media and access that you give to other applications on your phone. We don't have a reason to just hate on TikTok if we're not also hating on American companies. There have also been other companies in the past, other applications. For example, there's one called Meitu, Meitu, which was a selfie application that was also a Chinese company. And they were also collecting data points from your phone and sending it to their servers. And it was almost the same kind of data. So why didn't like that application get banned, but TikTok does? And that would be my big question. Now, as a user, as somebody who is very security conscious, I have a Facebook account, but I don't have the application installed on my phone because I know that they collect a lot of information from your phone that I'm not comfortable with. Same with TikTok. I don't have TikTok installed on my phone because I don't like the kind of information that they choose to collect on you. So I would say for anybody who's thinking about downloading information or downloading applications onto your phone, check those permissions, because a lot of times, as soon as you agree to the permissions that you're giving to these applications, it's basically a free pass for them to collect whatever they want on you, as long as it's within the Play Store or the iOS App Store's terms of service. So if they're good, the application's still going to be available. So I do think it's kind of hilarious that, America is trying to ban this one application when there's probably thousands out there that are very, very similar.
Are y'all getting all this fire? She just dropped all this fire on the podcast. I respect that. So true. So hypocritical, but we don't have time to dig that hole. We don't have time for all that, but you make very, very good points about TikTok and the hypocrisy and bias and all of that.
Well, thank you for letting me vent.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. But Shannon Morse, awesome conversation. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I had such a blast talking to you.
Absolutely. I had a blast too. We will definitely have to do it again sometime. But before you leave, let the people know where they can find you.
Oh, yeah. YouTube.com/Shannon Morse, Morse, just like Morse code. And Twitter.com/snubs, SNUBS. But I promise I will not snubs you.
She will not snub you. And does anybody find it ironic that her last name is Morse and she's into hacking? I just find that uber ironic.
Yeah, and it's my real name. That's my real last name.
Real name. That is crazy. Shout out to my man Janosin for pasting her channel link in the chat there. If you guys want to go check out the channel, if you're watching the podcast live, there you go. Shout out to the 31 of you all that are watching or have watched the podcast today. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of VypDrive. I appreciate you guys rocking out. Her channel link is right there, so check her out. If you super chatted, became a channel member, or brought me a coffee, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys rocking out each and every episode of the podcast. Shout out to those of y'all that listening on audio only this week. Thank you for listening to another episode of VypDrive. I appreciate you guys rocking out each and every week on the podcast. If you want to go check out Shannon content, check the show notes. Her information will be down there as always. If you want to support or donate to the podcast, there is a link down there in the show notes to buy me a coffee. Not required, but anything that you're willing to contribute, always appreciate it. If you happen to be listening on Apple Podcasts, please consider leaving that rating or review as to help more people discover the show. And we're trying to get back into the top 200 of tech podcasts on Apple. So if you have a moment, please go down there if you're on Apple Podcasts and leave that rating or review. And thank you for listening to another episode of VypDrive. For those of y'all that watch this podcast live, you know that we're not done tonight because in about an hour, I believe, we are coming back with the Guy from Tech Gear Talk. So your boy Viper will be right back in about an hour. But other than that, let me hit the outro and get the hell out of here. But until the next time, people, this your boy Viper, the man about tech. You know where to find me. So come back for more.